If everyone could take your seats, we're going to get started. So wonderful to see everyone here. Oh, look at that. It works so well. Thank you. And we are going to begin with the choir, right?
This broken world needs our help to heal. Be a shining light, see your dream is realized. Baruch atah Adonai, mivarech hashayim. Baruch atah
How wonderful it is for our families to be together, for our Shir Shalom family to be together. Look around the room at our wonderful community. And we gather today on Yom Kippur Day, again for the first time since 2019 as a full community. We come together with our hearts full of joy, some in pain, some in love. All of us just happy to have made it to this point that we are today. As we come, I always remind everyone, let's go over our greetings. We say, Shana Tova. Good Yontif. Chag Sameach. Gemar Chatima Tova. And Sam Kal. All right, so we are using Mishkan HaNefesh here. If everyone has one of our machzors, it is a little bit heavy. My version especially, I have to be careful. This is good for lifting weights, actually. So we're going to begin on page 135, and I'd like to bring over Rob Liederman to lead us in We Thank You.
We thank you, living and eternal one, for morning light, for the breath within us, for strength and renewed life. Now it opens before us, the Sabbath of Sabbaths, gift of spacious contemplation, mirror for the soul. May we see our lives reflected in this still, clear pool, a day apart, unhurried time, undivided mind. Give us joy in this day that Israel shares. Give us presence and attention, clear vision, a listening heart. We wake to the morning, we open our eyes, we breathe your name.
Invite everyone to rise as community on page 178 for our call of community, the Baruch Hu. Remain standing, page 186 and 87 for the Shema.
Shema
may be seated. I'd like to invite up Peyton Weinstein to lead us in the Via Hafta on page 188. Peyton just had her bat mitzvah a couple weeks ago.
V'aha hafta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadevarim ha'elech asher Anohi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha bevetecha uvlechtecha v'aderet uv'shakmecha uv'kumecha ukshartem leod al yadecha v'chayu l'totefot beinenecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha.
Oh, it goes to the next page. Sorry. Here, let me get you a book here. It's confusing. We gave you two different strokes. Oh, you have it right there. Oh, no.
Leman tiskeru va'asitem et kol mitzotai v'hitam kedoshim lelochehem ani Adonai Elochehem asher hotzeitiehem me'eretz Mitzrayim le'od lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elochehem.
You want to see how happy this is? We continue with a reflection on the Shema, which can be found on page 189. I'd like to invite up Rebecca Shaw to lead us. When you love.
When you love Adonai Elohecha, body and soul, these things I ask of you will be possible. To answer your children's questions about me and believe your answers yourselves. To connect religion to your everyday comings and goings. For example, when you hug them in bed at night with tender words, Shema Yisrael, or when you think to say, Modeh Ani, in the rush of getting them up and out in the morning. To be alert enough to open doors for your children in every waking moment and when they dream. And finally, to remember just why all these things matter. They matter because I, Adonai Elohecha, brought you and your children out of Egypt to be God for you. I am your God, and when you do these things, I will be your children's God.
Page 196, Mi Chamocha, 196.
Asfatayam yachad kulam hodu v'kim lechu ve'ameru Adonai Imon le'olam vaed So Yisrael Kuma b'yasot Yisrael Uv'tekenu mecha Yehuda v'Yisrael Ganenu Adonai Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai. Ga'al Yisrael.
Page 198, I'd like to bring up Mickey Farber to read In the Depths.
In the depths of night, by the edge of the river, Jacob was left alone. In heartfelt longing, in the temple of God, Hannah uttered her prayer alone. In the barren wilderness, in doubt and despair, Elijah found God alone. On the holiest day, in the Holy of Holies, the high priest entered alone. We are bound to one another in myriad ways, but each soul needs time to itself. In solitude, we meet the solitary one. Silence makes space for the still, small voice. For the psalmist says, deep calls unto deep. From the depths of our soul, we seek what is most profound. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
I invite you to rise if you're able for the silent Amida, which begins on page 198 and goes through 205. Take an opportunity for your own private reflections, and we'll continue on 202 after. Page 202. to page 209 as we prepare for the Unatana Tokef. I'd like to invite up David and Diane Sapphire for Today We Call.
Today we call it by its rightful name, a day of dread, nor a biome. Unwelcome visitor, for we want to live in a sunny world where God is love and all endings are happy.
But the drumbeat sounds and the words tumble down, and even the angels tremble with fear. For all things are judged, and all things will pass, and life ends in a heartbeat, and death knows our name.
At the start of the year, in the season of truth, comes the day of remembrance. For all we forget and all we deny, and we fall on our knees in the depths of our hearts, for we know the bell tolls for us.
The words are old and the language was theirs, but the call is real and the message is ours. Take hold of your life while you still have the chance, for your story will end, and it might be this year in a way you don't know. Take hold of your life. Make things right while you can, and don't miss the call of the day of dread.
Page 208, the Hebrew words of the text. Page 210, we read together in English. And so a great shofar will cry, Tikkiah, a still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, Behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes even they are not blameless. All who come into this world pass before you, like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decide destiny, you inscribe judgments. 2:12.
Song
together on 2:12 to 2:14. On Rosh Hashanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil? Who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted? But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. I'd like to invite up Sharon and Barry Krebs for the reading that is on page 251, The Birds They Sang.
The birds they sang at the break of day, start again, I heard them say, don't dwell on what has passed away or what is yet to be. The wars they will be fought again, the holy dove be caught again, bought and sold and bought again, the dove is never free. Ring the bells that they still can ring, forget your perfect offering, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
My hope is that you hear. I know that it holds little, so they told me. Even so, I want to hope again for this, that you hear how I hope. My hope is like a hind waiting. Be careful not to embrace it. Break one dry shoot of a tree and it goes. And would we have the strength for another beginning? I hope and am that hope.
Avinu Malkeinu on 252. I'm going to invite Todd over here to open our ark. And we'll invite everyone to rise. We'll read the English together first. We'll read responsively. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our families. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness and violence and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn us away from you with nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, act towards us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice, treat us with tender compassion. And together, Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu,
may be seated. Shana Tova. How wonderful it is to see you, how special it is for us to be together. I've said throughout this, I look out and I see my friends and my family, my community. Each and every one of you is important to me and to our community. My talk today is called Loving Our Neighbors as Ourselves. A few weeks after the attack on Tops Market on Jefferson Avenue, I was sitting with a group of people processing what had just happened. Most of us talked about how sad it had made us feel, how angry, how awful that such things could happen right here in our own community. But one person, a young mother, said something that shocked me. She said, "To be honest, what happened over there seems very far away. While I have lived here my whole life, that is not a place I visit. It doesn't feel very connected to me." Now, the shooting at the elementary school in Texas, that hit me hard. Having small children at home, I think about that all the time. Very far away, I thought, not connected to my own life. While I knew she was just being honest about how she felt, her honesty revealed just how very divided our community really is. When I first moved here, I would hear over and over again people not wanting to attend different events because they were quote-unquote downtown. It was curious to me how a 20-minute drive could be out of the way, but I didn't think much more about it. Over the past 5 months, I have been thinking a lot more about it. Maybe it was never really about downtown, but about something else, something harder to discuss and to even name. As the national media reminded us in May, Buffalo is the 6th most racially segregated city in the country. More than this, according to statistics, and I had to track this statistic down, but it is an actual statistic. On any given day, 90% of whites in this area never have a meaningful encounter with a person of color, and 90% of blacks never have a meaningful encounter with someone who is white. Just take that in for a second. I quickly came to realize that we don't have a neighborhood problem in Western New York, as in Buffalo's east side. We have a neighbor problem. As a self-proclaimed city of good neighbors, we have a long way to go to fully realize our goal. To help us out, I would like to share a story of one of our synagogue's neighbors, who up until his death in December of 2019 lived just down the street from us in Snyder with his wife, Catalin. Tibor Baranski, or Uncle Tibor, as he was known to his family and friends, was a quiet man with big, fluffy eyebrows. I mean, really big ones. And he had a tuft of white hair in the back. A patent lawyer, he always dressed in a jacket and neatly pressed pants. He was fluent in 5 languages: his native Hungarian, German, Latin, English, and even a little Hebrew. Still, he had a way of making everyone feel included, with a self-effacing sense of humor and a hearty laugh. A devout Catholic, he prayed the rosary several times a day, attended services every Sunday at Christ the King, and always blessed his ancestors whenever he passed by a cemetery. A loving husband, father, and grandfather, Tibor Baranski was a model citizen and a wonderful neighbor. What you never would have guessed in interacting with him is that a lifetime ago, he was one of the rare individuals who actually had an opportunity to fully realize the words that we will read later today in the Torah from Leviticus 19:18. V'ahavta l'reacha chamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. The neighbors in this case were the Xerxes family, a Jewish family that owned a factory by his family home in Budapest. He, his parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles lived in a part of Budapest that was very integrated, Jew and Gentile living side by side. In his class in grammar school, about a fifth of the students were Jewish. His aunt and Mrs. Xerxes were good friends. She was a constant presence in the Baranski household, and Tibor was a regular in the Xerxes household. It was in the spring of 1944, and Germany had just occupied Hungary. Tibor Baranski was 22 years old. Just to take that in, he was 22. Everything that follows, that's part of what makes it amazing. Even at that age, he understood the stakes, rushing back to Budapest from his seminary in Yugoslavia to help in any way he could. His studies to become a priest could wait. Immediately, he was given a task. Go to the Papal Nuncio, the Vatican's chief emissary, and ask for letters of protection for his Jewish neighbors. The local Vatican representative, a man by the name of Angelo Ratto, was an imposing figure that very few people would approach directly. But this did not dissuade Tibor Baranski. This is someone who at the age of 15 had written directly to the Prime Minister of Hungary complaining about policies. That was an absolute no-no for anyone, let alone a teenager there. So weaving his way through the long line of people waiting for visas outside the Papal Nuncio residence, Baranski barged right into the building and over to Ratto's door. One can only imagine the surprise of one of the most respected figures in the entire Catholic Church to see this young seminarian demanding papers for his neighbors. Needless to say, Baranski walked out with the 9 signed letters of protection, one for each member of the Xerxes household. Having had success in saving one set of neighbors, Baranski returned to the Papal Nuncio a week later to see if he could save more. Ratto instructed him to go the next day to a factory to free 50 Jews, all on the short list to be deported. But Baranski insisted on going right then and there. He was offered a small German car they called the Opel, but he refused and demanded they give him something with a little more status. He walked away with a Rolls Royce. He even recruited a driver to complete the ruse. So there he was, a few hours later, threatening to crash into the gates of the factory if they were not opened immediately. After much conversation, the SS guards finally complied and offered to take him to where the Jews were being held. Dismissing their suggestion, he marched right through the factory himself, and he found not 50, but 2,000 Jews huddled together. Baranski called the names of the people he had letters for, and he whispered to the rest how to contact the underground. Thus began a daring series of rescues throughout Hungary that would have Baranski picking up Jews left and right from the side of roads or wherever he found them, telling off a shocked Adolf Eichmann on the phone. He really did this. I don't think he knew it was Adolf Eichmann, but he really told him off. And working side by side with the famous Swedish diplomat Raoul Wallenberg. Barely sleeping or eating, he spent every possible moment of every possible day saving as many lives as possible. When held at gunpoint by SS guards and asked, "Why do you, a Christian, help Jews?" he responded sternly, "You're either silly or an idiot. It is because I am a Christian that I help Jews." For his bravery and ingenuity, he suffered immensely. He was arrested by the communists at the end of the war and thrown in jail and tortured. He only narrowly survived a brutal 16-day, 160-mile death march because of the kindness of a Russian soldier. He was thrown in jail again and would remain there until 1953. And yet, years later, when asked about his heroism, Baranski would simply shrug it off, replying, "I only did what God demanded of me. I'm only a useless servant." According to official records, Tibor Baranski almost single-handedly rescued 3,000 Jews. But that doesn't tell the full story, because based on the amount of food that he was supplying to the various safe houses, the numbers are likely about 3 to 4 times as high. All of this, every single life that he saved, was because of his desire to help his neighbors. His efforts to save the Circus family eventually led to the rescue of 10 to 12,000 individual lives. Tibor Baranski not only fulfilled the words of Leviticus, but by the way, 10 to 12,000, that's the number of Jews in Buffalo. He not only fulfilled the words of Leviticus, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. He embodied them. He understood the command to love, V'ahavta, to go beyond mere affection and to extend so far as to do anything and everything on their behalf. He understood kamocha as yourself, to extend so far as to put his own risk to save others. And he understood re'echa, neighbor, to go well beyond his actual neighbor and neighborhood, to extend to anyone, everyone, even remotely connected to his neighbors. If you listen closely to Tibor Baranski's story, you will notice the impetus that gave him the strength and courage to do what he did. Hungary as a country was a German ally. Most Hungarians lived in different neighborhoods than their fellow Jews. The Baranski family, on the other hand, lived side by side with Jews, seeing us as equals and not enemies. This, sadly, is not the case when it comes to blacks here in Buffalo. Here, there are clear dividing lines between people with darker skin and people with white. This fact is not unique to Western New York, but true across most of the United States. It is not a Buffalo problem, but a systemic societal one. I know this because I have lived it. As many of you know, I grew up in the inner city of Philadelphia and went to school at a suburban Jewish day school. Every day on the way to school, I would rise at 5:30 in the morning and take the 54 bus from my home in West Philadelphia to my school in Marion, about a 20-minute ride, exactly what I described about Buffalo. On the bus, I was one of the only whites. In my high school, I was one of the only kids from the city. In this way, I saw the world had two parts, white and black, privileged, deprived, haves and have-nots. In my school, I watched classmates be given new cars as soon as they turned 16, while my friends from the neighborhood, and one of them told me this more recently, would open up our family refrigerator and be amazed that it was filled with food. In my school, my friends saw their future paths in adulthood as future doctors, lawyers, writers, and rabbis. At home, many of my friends just hoped to survive into adulthood. Even then, I was confused how two places so close together geographically could be so far apart socially and economically. I knew there was little difference in the quality of people in both places, only in the opportunities they were given. In many ways, I've spent a lifetime trying to bring these two worlds together. So how do we do it? How do we truly love our neighbors as ourselves? Number one, in order to love our neighbors as ourselves, we must expand our definition of what it means to be a neighbor. Broader than just whom we know, it must include those we don't know as well. It must go beyond place of residence or political affiliation, beyond religion or interest group, beyond skin tone or nationality. It must extend even to the people who on the surface we are told by others to hate. The further we open our hearts to others, the bigger our circles become. The bigger and better our world will become. Number two, in order to love our neighbors as ourselves, we must try to understand them better. To that end, for the past 2 years, our Buffalo Jewish community is one of a select few communities in the first cohort of Jewish Federations of North America, JEDI, or Jewish Equity and Diversity and Inclusion Program. Led by my Jewish Community Relations Council team member, Rachel Bierman, and volunteer chair, Corey Arbach, we have read key books on the topic, listened to a variety of speakers, both locally and nationally, and gone out into the community to meet and interact with people. More than this, we visited the Underground Railroad Museum in Niagara Falls, went to a garden walk on the east side, and met the leadership who organized the Juneteenth celebration, one of the oldest and biggest in the entire country. Over the course of this year, many more events will be planned. I hope that you will be a volunteer or a participant in some or all of them. Number 3, in order to love our neighbors as ourselves, we must actually go out and meet them. At the vigil outside the Tops Market the morning after the attack, I saw not 1 or 2, but 24 members of the Buffalo Jewish community. 3 years ago, this may not have been the case. When Reverend Mark Blue, the head of the local chapter of the NAACP, welcomed me to the center of the circle to address the crowd, it was the product of years of relationship building. 5 years ago, we had been randomly placed as roommates on a religious leaders trip to Israel, sponsored by our local Buffalo Jewish Federation. Since that time, we have become closer and closer, assisting one another with various communal projects. He was there for our Jewish community when the Tree of Life attack occurred in 2018, and I was there for his after the May 14th attack. More than just neighbors, we have become good friends. Number 4, in order to love our neighbors as ourselves, we must realize that our neighbors are ourselves. Our Jewish community itself is not a monolith of white Ashkenazi descendants of Europeans. Nationally, some 10 to 12% of Jews are Jews of color. And while our numbers here are slightly smaller, we have a strong cohort of Jews of color that have become more and more a presence in our larger Jewish community, as well as at Congregation Shir Shalom. You must remember where we come from. Our roots are not in Europe, but in the Mediterranean, Middle East, and of course, Africa. Locally, Jefferson Avenue was not just a place disconnected from us, but was once the center of our Jewish community. At one time, it had Jewish-owned shops, delis, synagogues, and study halls. Many of the businesses there today were founded by Jews. On May 14th, an 18-year-old white American came from 3 hours away into our neighborhood to kill black people. In doing so, he revealed the problems not only in our larger society, but in our community as well. He came here with hate in his heart, to inspire hate in the hearts of others. But there is a stronger emotion than hate, one that is the essence of that essential command in Leviticus: love. No matter what challenges we face here in Buffalo, love is not one of them. As Julian Hainsworth, a young Buffalo-born black activist who has become a symbol of resilience after the May 14th attack, and Buffalo's first ever poet laureate, and someone who I will be traveling to Israel with in February, wrote in her poem, "Choose Buffalo." The place where we build what we need, where we run until we cross the finish line and fight until we are free, where we pick up the broken pieces and create something brand new. We fight hard and love harder. There's nothing we cannot do. We stare directly into the eyes of every painful truth, not letting it define us. We decide what to choose. So we choose light, love, and family. We're the mafia, after all, and when evil tries to break us, we choose to stand tall. We'll shout loud and live louder until the walls of hate fall, because justice can't be limited, so we choose it for all. We choose healing around here. We eat storms like buffalo wings. We'll jump through hoops and through tables. It's a Buffalo thing. So no matter what others say, no matter what they try to do, love, light, and each other is what we will always choose. A few weeks ago at Forest Lawn Cemetery, only a mile from where the May 14th attack occurred, we dedicated a monument to Tibor and his wife, Catalin. It's right in the center of the Jewish and Christian and non-sectarian sections. At the cemetery, I stood at the end of the ceremony to recite the mourner's Kaddish. Tibor Baranski had made a request for a rabbi to do this at his funeral, and his family had made it for him now. And while he was not Jewish, I of course said yes. Why wouldn't I? It was, after all, the neighborly thing to do. A Gamar Chatima Tova, may be written and sealed in the book of a life well lived. We'll take just a couple minutes in silence before we proceed with the service. I'd like to invite up Gail and Larry Kerman. And we're going to be turning on page 254 as we prepare for the Torah service. They will be reading, "Let the reading of the Torah."
Let the reading of Torah be like prayer, a meditation to remind us what we arrive for, a chant that binds us to the chain of generations.
Let the reading of the Torah be like prayer, a moment of purest solidarity with our people's hopes and history, an invitation to affirm or dissent, to challenge or believe, to ask why or say amen.
Let the reading of Torah be like prayer, flowing like waters that renew the spirit, refreshing and sweet to nourish the soul.
Let the reading of Torah be like prayer, every word a blessing, every verse a conversation with God.
We turn to our Torah service on 256, and I invite you to rise for the 13 attributes.
Adonai, Adonai, Erakum v'chanun, Erech Apayim, v'rav chesed ve'emet, Noseh chesed la'alavim, Noseh avot I'd like to invite up our Torah carriers, Todd Sugarman, Bruce Corris, Sherry Jo Reich, and Marina and Mark Finkelstein.
And we continue with the responsively on page 256 with the Shema Yisrael.
Adonai
turn to page 266 for our Torah reading. Our first reader will be Laura Majeski. I invite her over here to the Torah table. We moved it over here, by the way, because the spotlight's over here. We'll probably be moving it around over the course of the year. And for the first Aliyah, we'd like to call up Harvey Horowitz. Yamod, Harvey Horowitz, Aliyah Harishona. He's always calling us up, so. We'll be reading verses 9 through 14 from Deuteronomy 29.
Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Barak Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem rashechem shivtechem ziknechem v'shotrechem kol ish Yisrael tapechem neshechem v'gerecha Asher b'kerev machanecha mechotev etzecha ad shoev memecha liavracha bivrit Adonai Elohecha uve'alato Asher Adonai Elohecha koreit imacha hayom Le'ma'an hakim otecha hayom lo le'am v'hu yihye lecha le'elohim ka'asher diber lach v'ha'asher nishba la'avotecha le'avraham le'yitzchak u'le'yakov v'lo itechem levadechem anochi koreit et haberit hazot ve'et ha'ala hazot ki et asher yashno ho imanu omed hayom lifnei Adonai Eloheinu ve'et asher einenu po imanu hayom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yashar koach, beautiful. If you notice, by the way, I should say we have a temporary microphone sound system in right now, and so some of you in the back there could be a little discrepancy, but also we don't have our normal electronic changers, so Cantor is trying to do double duty here if you see her coming over here. We are going to turn to our second Aliyah, which is Deuteronomy 30, verses 11 through 14. This would normally have been Ganilla Kester. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to be with us today, but we're going to invite up Dan and Shiri to do the Aliyah. And Anya, okay, all three of you guys. Yamdu Mishpachat Kester Laliyah Hasheni. Aliyah, I'd like to invite up, first of all, the Aliyah is Deuteronomy 30, verses 15 through 20. I'd like to invite up Nicholas Lowinger, who is the reader. And Frank Klipstein will be doing the blessing.
Baruch et Adonai Hamborah. Baruch Adonai Hamborah Le'olam Voed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bocharbanu Mikol Ha'amim V'notan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Ra'eh natati lefanecha hayom et hachaim v'et hatov v'et hamavet v'et hara asher anochi metzavecha hayom la'ahava et Adonai elecha lalechet bidrachav v'lishmor mitzvotav v'chukotav u'mishpatav v'chayita v'ravita u'v'rechecha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher ata v'shama lirishta v'im yifnei levavecha v'lo tishma v'nidachta v'hashtachavita le'elohim achirim va'avdatam higadati lachem hayom ki avod tov edun lo ta'arichun yamim al ha'adama asher atalver et hayarden lavo shama lirishta hidoti bachem hayom et hashamayim v'et haaretz hachaim v'hamavet natati lefanecha habaracha v'hakelala uvacharta b'chaim lema'an tichye ata v'zareach la'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lishmoa bekolo u'dov kavo ki hu chayecha ve'orech yamecha v'shevet al-adama asher nishba Adonai le'avotecha le'avraham li'yitzhak u'Yaakov latet lachem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nosan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nota b'tohenu Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Yeshar koach. Beautiful job. We're going to turn now. Why don't we put the? We're going to turn now to our prayers of healing. We will be turning in our machzor to Heal Us Now, which is on page 272. And I'm going to read our list that we have here. Oh, I'm okay, actually. Do you want it? Now they like the small one better. After I read this list, if you have names you want, just raise your hand. As a community, we are praying for Rachel Anderson, Mark Clay, Gary Bernstein, Stephen Bernstein, Joseph Dash, Drew Demowitz, Gary Filipponi, Sue Frank, Antonio Franzen, Lester Frank, Leslie Garfinkel, Marlene Glickman, Sharon Gray, Irene Green, Dennis Halpin, Paula Jones, Barad Kelly, Mark Nightinger, Joe Malucci, Patricia Newton, Jill Shire Monahan, Ann Oppenheim, Cheryl Rossi, Brandon Ryan, Joyce Seitz, Carol Silverman, William Scretany, Nicholas Warren Tepper, Adam Tinlin, Kristen Walker, Anita Wiesel, Mike Wheeler, Kristen Zalowiski, Aviva Bat-Shoshana, Hanan Ezra Ben-Shul, Alice Honig, Vincent Lopez, and Deborah Medwin. If there's other names, just raise your hand.
Stephen Mackler.
Alan Balcourt.
We bring all those names into our heart as we sing the prayer. Complete healing to all of us in our hearts, in our souls, and in our bodies. We are going to be turning to our Haftarah, and I believe Harvey Horowitz are you leading to us. So the Haftarah can be found on page 275 through 279.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar bin v'im tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai, Habocher b'Torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'inviei ha'emet v'tzedek. If we Jews fast on Yom Kippur, then our sins should be forgiven, right? Not according to the prophet Isaiah. But listen to Isaiah chapter 58. Kira v'garon al tachsoch kashofar harem kolecha v'haged le'ami pisham u'levet Yaakov chatotam va'oti yom yidrishun v'da'at rachai yechpatzun kegoy asher tzedakah asa Umishpat Elohav lo azav yishaluni mishpatei tzedek kirvat Elohim yechpatzun. Verse 3 in English. They say, why did we fast? And you, God, do not see it. We afflict ourselves, and you do not know it. Because even on your fast day, Isaiah explains, you think only of desire, while oppressing all who work for you. Because your fasting is filled with strife, and with callous fist you strike. No, your fasting this day will not lift up your voice before heaven. Is this the fast I desire, says God? A day to afflict body and soul, bowing your head like a reed, covering yourself with sackcloth and ashes. Do you call this a fast, a day worthy of the favor of Adonai? Is not this the fast I desire? To break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke, to let the oppressed go free and release all those enslaved? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and to take the homeless poor into your home and never to neglect your own flesh and blood? Then shall your light burst forth like the dawn, and your wounds shall quickly heal, your righteous ones leading the way before you, the presence of Adonai guarding you from behind. Then, when you call, Adonai will answer, and when you cry, will respond, Hineni, I am here. If you remove the chains of oppression, the menacing hand, the malicious word, if you offer your compassion to the hungry and satisfy the suffering, then shall your light shine through the darkness, and your night becomes bright as noon. Verse 11. V'nachach Adonai tamid v'hisbiya b'tzachtzachot nafshecha v'atzmotecha yachalitz v'hayita kegan raveh Uchamotza mayim asher lo yechazavu meimav uvanu mimecha charvot olam mosdei dor vador tekomem v'kora lecha goder peretz mishovev netivot lashavet im tashiv mishabat raglecha asot chafatzecha beyom kodshi v'karata lashabat oneg Likdosh Adonai mechubad v'chibadeto ma'aseh drachecha mimitzo cheftecha v'daber davar az titanag al Adonai v'hirkavticha al bomotei haaretz v'ha'achalticha nachalat Yaakov avicha ki pi Adonai daber. The final blessing is found on page 180. But 280, thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el haneman, ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber u'mekayem, shekol dvarav emet v'tzedek. Al HaTorah v'al ha'avodah v'al ha'nevi'im v'al Yom HaKippurim hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu limchila v'lislicha u'lechapara lechavod u'letifaret Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, umevarachim otach, yitbarach shimcha befi kol chai, tamid leolam va'ed, udvacha emet v'kayam la'ad. Baruch atah Adonai, melech bocher v'solech la'avonotenu, v'la'avonot amo beit Yisrael, u'ma'avir shmotenu b'chol shana v'shana. Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael, Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael, Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael, V'yom HaKippurim.
Yesher Koach, beautiful job. So I'd like to call up to the Bima someone who was the very first person that I believe I met here in Western New York, which is outside of the community that had called me here, which was Evie Weinstein. Years ago, when I first arrived in 2008, I think it was the first day I got a call from her. She was the head of our Bureau of Jewish Education, and she needed me to teach classes at Hebrew High. I said, okay. And not only did she hand me exactly the class that I should teach, which was, she even gave me the whole entire curriculum. She made me feel so very welcomed here, and we have been friends since. She has a long connection and tradition at our synagogue, and she started here in her work in Jewish education, I believe, as well as at Lakeland Camp. She was working with Mark Horowitz in our preschool and larger school as well. She made her way to the top ranks of our Buffalo Jewish community at the BGE, and now has since retired but continues to do work in Musar. If you have an opportunity to take a class or to work with her, that is the study to develop, how do we qualify, what's the English word for it? Jewish midot? That's a Hebrew word. Jewish values. It's a way of studying and balance our values. And it's been wonderful to have her back here at Congregation Shir Shalom, where she belongs. And she will be making our holiday appeal. I'm going to have to lower everything. Small in height, but great in stature.
That's a big difference. Thank you. Lashana Tova, and thank you, Todd. Oh. Thank you, Todd and Rabbi Alex, for giving me the honor to address our congregation on the most important and holy day of the Jewish year. Thank you. Jewish tradition distinguishes between two different kinds of generosity. The first that we are most familiar with is tzedakah, which is obligated giving. We give tzedakah in all kinds of ways. Our children bring tzedakah to religious school each week as an obligation. We often write checks to various charities without really thinking about it, except that knowing it's the right thing to do. The second, which is the focus for this appeal, is called Nevidut Halev, which literally means generosity of the heart in Hebrew. It is a generosity that does not come from a sense of obligation, but rather a movement of the soul that you cannot resist. Like each of our lives in the world around us, our beloved CSS community has seen many challenges in the past 2 years. We faced a rapidly changing environment as we approached High Holy Days, and our clergy, staff, and volunteers did a great job pivoting and providing meaningful holiday seasons, Shabbat services, as well as continuing programs, pastoral care, simchot, and religious education. Finally, we are now able to come together in person at regular intervals for services and holidays. We are excited about upcoming opportunities to gather, to learn, to worship, to sing, and to connect face to face and soon even play pickleball. Shir Shalom is a place of calm, a sheltering space against the difficulties we all face in life. It is a place to renew our spirits, to collectively address injustice, to connect deeply with friends and family, to celebrate and to worship. Keeping our community strong allows us to strengthen and nourish ourselves and each other while repairing the world. For Barry and me, being members and volunteering at CSS is truly heartfelt. 29 years ago, our son Danny, who's sitting right here, became a bar mitzvah right here on this bima. In less than a year, Jamie and Danny's son, our beloved grandson Spencer, will also become a bar mitzvah right here on this bima. And in a few years, our dear, dear Graham will follow in his father's and brother's footsteps. Our son Ron was president of the Temple Beth Am youth group and is now a leader in his synagogue in Maryland. Our family has celebrated with friends, family, and fellow congregants and mourned deep losses as a community right here in this sanctuary. Our clergy provide the spiritual basis for living our Jewish lives with meaning and strength and song. We are given opportunities to grow and learn and reach the best we can be through Torah and Jewish values. And with the rise of anti-Semitism in the U.S. and around the world, our synagogue teaches our children and reminds us who we are and what we stand for, both in the Jewish and outside the Jewish community. All these opportunities are made possible by your ongoing, generous financial support. Shir Shalom needs all of our help to continue offering engaging and meaningful programs of all kinds, both remote and in person. Our annual giving campaign helps fill the gap between revenues from temple membership, donations, tuition, and various fees, and the actual cost of running the temple. Importantly, annual giving also helps offset unanticipated expenses. For example, investments in technology, security, and tech support in response to the pandemic, and allows us to maintain and initiate the high-quality programs and services that have been central to the tradition of our congregation. We are asking you as a congregation to give from the heart to our annual giving campaign. Please join Barry, me, and our family once again in supporting CSS, an investment in our congregation. Our goal is to have 100% participation with whatever you feel is appropriate for you. With your generous, heartfelt support, Congregation Shir Shalom will remain strong and viable for generations. I would now like to ask you if it is your custom to fold or tab the tabs on your annual giving cards, your blue ticket, unless you previously marked them in the amount you choose. Hand them to our ushers who will stand and circulate throughout the sanctuary. Hand them to our ushers and board members who will be walking in the aisles. You can also leave this morning by dropping them off in the annual giving box outside the sanctuary, or hand them over to an usher before leaving temple. The amount you choose to donate is so very important to the temple and your fellow congregants. I want to thank you in advance for listening and caring about what I shared with you this morning. And again, Lashana Tova to you and your family.
And we thank you for your generosity, and Evie for your beautiful words. We're going to turn to page 294 as we move towards the last half of our service, last quarter of our service, last little bit of our service. We're almost there, don't worry. Page 294. Hear our call, Adonai our God. Show us compassion. Accept our prayer with love and goodwill. Take us back, Adonai. Let us come back to you. Renew our days as in past. Hear our words, Adonai. Understand our unspoken thoughts. May the speech of our mouths and our hearts' quiet prayer be acceptable to you, Adonai, our rock and our redeemer. Do not cast us away from your presence or cut us off from your Holy Spirit. Do not cast us away when we are old, as our strength diminishes. Do not forsake us. Do not forsake us, Adonai. Be not far from us, our God. With hope, Adonai, we await you. Surely you, Adonai, our God, you will answer. I invite you to rise for the Tavo Lefanecha 296 as we move to our Vidui, our confessional prayer.
Adonai Eloheinu, v'Elohei Avotenu, tzadikim אנחנו, ולא חטאנו.
Take our fist and we lightly tap our chest as a way of saying we can do better. Or if you choose, you can hug yourself too. We can create a new tradition. Seated. I'd like to bring up Andy Abramowitz on page 305. for a reading We Focused.
We focused inward, narrowing our vision. We were preoccupied with ourselves. We turned our backs on the poor and defenseless. We were contemptuous of the weak. We tolerated violence against children, neglect of the old, exploitation of the innocent. We told ourselves there was nothing we could do. We wasted the resources of the earth. We denied our own responsibility and put it out of our minds. We kept silent when we should have spoken out. We gave in to cynicism and despair. We sought entertainment instead of enlightenment. We were lazy, indifferent, and callous. We forgave ourselves too easily for our failures. We forgot that we always have a choice.
On page 304 through 306, we'll read responsibly. The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world by hating without cause. The ways we have wronged you by losing self-control, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world by hardening our hearts. The ways we have wronged you through greed and exploitation, harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty and business. The ways we have wronged you through our innermost thoughts, and harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor. The ways we have wronged you by offering or accepting bribes, and harm we have caused in your world by profaning your name in public. Together, for all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us. Please forgive us, God, because we are your people and you are our God. Page 310, Ki anu amech. Before we close with Hayom on page 318. Just a reminder of a couple of things. First of all, we do have reflections coming up at 1:30. Yeah, 1:30 that will be here, and we're going to be hearing from Nancy McGorry and Liz Staley. It should be a wonderful program. And we also, afterwards at 3 o'clock, we have our family service that is open to the community. At 4:30, we have our healing service. 4:15, we have our healing service led by Linda Bergman and Adrian Crandall. And at 5:30, I think, we have Mincha, followed by Yisker at 6 and Ne'ilah. And we'll have our close of Yom Kippur. As you go through your day, please take care of yourself. If you notice yourself feeling weak, please make sure to do what you need. This is not meant for any of us to go in the hospital by the end of the holiday. And just look out for each other. So often we can't always see what's going on with us, but sometimes others can see it of us. So please take care of one another today. And after services, just make sure you take your Machzor and bring it back to the front. So again, we're going to close with Hayom on page 318. Oh, and go just easy on the parking lot. It should be no problems at all, but just be careful if you're backing up. As you came in peace, may you leave in peace. Gemar Chatima Tovar. May you be written and sealed in the book of life.